Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show, the podcast where personal injury legal expertise meets real-world advice to empower and protect you. Join us as we delve into the critical aspects of personal injury cases, break down legal jargon into actionable insights, and share essential safety tips to help you navigate life's unexpected moments. And now, here are your hosts, Spencer Bettis and Ben Musgrove.
All right, welcome back to the Bettis Musgrove Show. As always, I'm Ben Musgrove. My law partners here, Spencer Bettis and Christopher Light. We're coming back to you, keeping this thing focused on the community and the people in the community. Today, we're bringing back an old Forsyth County guy that grew up here, currently lives down in Fulton County in the Milton area. He's a husband, a father, and what we're going to talk about today is he's an ER physician, and that's Mr. Matt Womack. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I know I met you a few times in the past with Christopher at whatever rehearsal dinners and different things, but it's good to see you again.
Same, likewise.
I don't think you were a doctor when I met you the first time.
It's been a while, yeah. I think it was all still part of the plan, but yeah I don't think we'd kind of done the walk yet.
Well, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about where you come from, how you got to where you are.
Sure. Like I said, Forsyth County since third grade. My parents still live there. So grew up, went to high school there. Still, like I said, I'm still in and around it. My kids go to preschool in Forsyth County, and my parents still there visiting them frequently. So I'm still very much around the area. Do live a little further south in the Milton area now. So my oldest goes to school in that area, coaching sports there. I went from Forsyth County at North to University of Georgia, and then moved on to medical school and residency. So I've been around a lot of different places outside of Forsyth County, yet still wound up coming kind of close to home after all that.
So I've known Matt since he moved into third grade, right? So he went to Chattahoochee, been out on the lake, and we were at North. But then all those schools back then, there's only 3 high schools, maybe 5 middle schools or something. I mean, Spencer remembers. So there was a bunch of schools that fed into North Middle. Yeah. So we played ball against each other, but we started being buddies in middle school, played basketball.
For his mom.
Yeah, our mom was
literally, his mom was our coach.
We never lost the middle school game, though.
Undefeated.
Both of you being about 7 foot tall probably didn't hurt. So.
Yeah, that helps.
We did. In 8th grade, we had a starting lineup of all kids over 6 feet.
Yeah.
That's it. In 8th grade?
In 8th grade. It was wild.
Could anybody dunk, though?
No, I don't think anybody. We had a couple. You could kind of start touching the rim.
Yeah.
But that's what I think Duncan started.
Matt got a good one in high school, though. That was a while.
It's funny. Mom brought down the boxes from my old closet just a month ago, and it had her little scrapbook she'd made from all the basketball stuff and a couple of those pictures, and so the kids had a real kick going through some of those.
Yeah.
Better question is, could you dunk today?
So today, man. I bet I get close. The last time I tried, I did. It's one of those, when I was 18, I don't know if I would have counted as a dunk because the ball went over and I got the rim. This was about 6 weeks ago. At almost 40, I think I would count it.
It'd be
the last one I got good, it was 37. On my birthday when I turned 37, I hammered one with 2 hands.
In high school, he could drop step and just jam one, but every opportunity never presented itself in the game. We were playing Dunwoody, probably the best team we played
number one
in 4 years. Yeah. He just comes out of nowhere, drives baseline, and just yaks one 2-handed. I mean, it was.
You remember
wild.
why? I got mad because the kid blocked my shot, and I chased down the ball, and that's when I dunked it.
I was like, "Where is that been this whole
Should have played angry more often."
I can say, honestly, I've never dunked a basketball in my life. So
same.
That's impressive. So coming out of Forsyth County, you grew up on the lake, you said?
Parents still live on the lake, yes,
okay.
sir.
And I love Lake Lanier. We're trying our best to get over there, but can't ever find a house. I've got a ton of kids, so I have to have a full compound. But what was it like growing up on the lake? Man,
the lake was so much fun. You get older and you realize how spoiled you were. My parents both had full-time jobs, so Monday through Friday in the summer they had us in camps just to kind of make their schedule a little easier. And it was just that was the norm. You come home from camp and we'd kick off our shoes and we'd run straight down to the lake. And we just I joke now that as I get sunburned that I never got sunburned as a kid because as soon as it was remotely warm in March, we were down in the lake every weekend. After school all the time. And so you're just out in the sun so much and never got sunburned. And then I got older. He got older. All of a sudden I got sunburned. Need sunscreen. He's like, "What's this stuff?" Yeah. So it was
they had
pretty special.
They were back in a good cove, but it was right at, you could get to main water pretty quick. So
nice.
We did some skiing and boarding and
wakeboarding stays. Yeah.
You gonna come back? Get back on the lake?
Man, I don't know. Especially now, you're almost kind of priced out. We're kind of
it's crazy.
We're kind of dug in where we're at now. It's tough, kids change a lot of that, right? We're pretty involved. I mentioned I'm pretty involved in sports. My oldest is a pretty good athlete, and he's been on a good baseball team the last couple of years. It's kind of been stable, and it's like, man, we got a good thing going there. It's just kind of hard to imagine digging up roots. So
that's like what Ben's like. I'm trying to get to the lake. I figured you'd have the bug.
Yeah, like
because that's how you grew up.
We talk about it. It's like, all right, at what point do we get a lake house? But like I said, there's so many of them. They're so priced out now. Yeah, so it's always on the radar, and we've looked and. We had some neighbors across the street that kept a boat up here for a while, so we spent a summer coming out and going back out with them, and we floated that. But yeah, it's just
it's crazy how much it costs just to keep a boat on the lake.
Yeah,
much less have a house.
Once he told me how much, the guy had a great boat, nice boat, and then once like, man, you shell out for the boat, but then what he's paying per month just to store it up there, you're just like, holy cow.
Well, and it's not the lake we grew up on either. It's the weekends are nuts out there.
Yeah, mom and dad, that's what they say. They don't even go out on the weekends anymore.
So
how many kids do you have?
Got three kids.
Okay.
Got a fourth grader, a first grader, and the littlest is in preschool.
All right. I'm right there with you. I got a fourth grader, 2 first graders, and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, it took me a minute to come up with all that.
It's busy.
Ben only had one princess stuck her there Matt only had one princess stuck right there in the middle. So.
I gotcha. One girl.
Oh, one girl right in the middle. Yeah, it is fun because she's definitely the princess and she's definitely a girly girl, but like she's got 2 brothers. She likes to throw down. She's got to hang in there with them. Yeah. She's sassy and she's tough, but she's still the princess for sure.
That's awesome. So tell us about coming out of Forsyth County. Where'd you go to college?
Went to UGA.
Okay.
Spent 4 years in Athens.
Go Dogs.
Yeah, go Dogs.
You did it in 4. Not everybody can do that.
I don't know why. You get older and you wonder why you did that. It was such a.
I took a victory lap.
I wish I had. I can't believe I didn't. I've been kicking myself for years now for not spending an extra year there. But no, still love Athens. Still love going back for ball games and basketball games, and walked on and played basketball my freshman year. So that was a cool experience.
That is cool.
As part of the journey. But yeah, no, big time.
I heard Dave Bliss is coaching somewhere.
No, he just won with the Thunder.
He's
been with the Thunder for a while. He was
right,
player development, bench coach.
So he played with him.
Yeah,
that's
very
right.
cool. Dave was the center on the team I played with. No, he's hopefully he'll get a head job here. He's a good dude. Good coach.
We got to get some better guests. Everybody comes here and plays college sports. I'm the odd man out here.
So did you go straight to med school, or did you?
So I did, yeah. So I ended up going to a Caribbean med school.
Nice.
Again, everybody's got an interesting path, and this goes back to like, why didn't you take a victory lap? It's like I was just like, it's going to be a long road.
Well, you knew you wanted to be a doctor as a kid,
ninth grade.
Yeah, I
so
remember.
Like Christopher and I had already been playing basketball together, but when I knew. Like I quit football. I remember Mom and Coach Hudson getting into it because he was giving her grief about me saying I wasn't going to play football anymore.
Right.
And my mom in ninth grade said, well, Matt says he's going to medical school, so I don't care what sport he plays. So I've known since ninth grade that's kind of was the end game. And knowing it was a long path, it was like, let's get into med school because that's going to be 4 years. And I had some trouble getting in this or that. Thought I had good shots here. It didn't work. And was like, what other options do I have? Like my roommate at the time was in the same boat. He decided to sit out a year, and circle back and went to Mercer. I wasn't that patient, so what are my other options? And found a Caribbean program that worked out well for me. So that was another adventure. And we just talked about being a kid growing up on the lake in Forsyth County is it's a little spoiled and not a lot of life experience there. And going to a Caribbean medical program, a lot of life experience there.
What island were you on?
So this little island called Dominica, it's not even there anymore. Ross University had to move islands because a couple of years ago when the hurricanes came in and flattened everything, and they had to move the school even. It was so bad.
That's wild.
And everybody pictures kind of Caribbean islands and stuff. Dominica was not that. It was a volcano island. They did get cruise ships from time to time. My parents actually stopped there once on a cruise they were on. Like it was a big deal when the place got a KFC.
Yeah.
It's like, I still understand. Like it's not, the beaches weren't nice because it was a volcanic island and stuff. So it was, you're living in the jungle and going to class, and you got a couple cool trips. The snorkeling was awesome down there. I didn't do scuba diving stuff. Some good hiking and stuff like that. A lot. They actually called it the nature island.
Okay.
So a lot of outdoorsy stuff to see and do there. So that the way that program worked, it was 4 semesters down there, and then we came back stateside for everything you did clinically. So I got lucky enough to be in the Atlanta area for those last 2.5 years. For most of it, I went up to Baltimore for like a 3-month rotation at Hopkins, trying to do everything you could. Right when you're a Caribbean grad, you
went to Boise, somewhere in Boise too for something. Didn't know?
Not there.
What I remember most about you being in the Caribbean is as soon as you would get service back on the plane coming in from Atlanta, he'd say, well, let's go to Roosters. Like immediately. Immediately.
That place has a draw. It's still a thing.
Yeah.
I've got my kids on it now. It's great.
Well, it struck me when you said KFC because I was like, there was no food. I remember you saying there was no good food.
It was awful.
It was
I guess, there was nowhere to eat. And it's like silly things. You had to, obviously you weren't moving all your furniture down there. So you would kind of these little pre-furnished apartments that were just like, nothing was comfortable. You didn't have a good chair to sit in. You didn't have a good bed to sleep in. It was just, it was functional, right? You got through it, but it was definitely an experience. It was some low key living there for a little while.
Probably help keep your head in the books a little bit. Not having all the comforts.
Yeah, you have to be pretty driven. That's the way the kind of Caribbean programs are a little bit different like that. That's what they joke. And I obviously didn't go to a state medical school, but they kind of joke is like they really want you to pass there. So they kind of coddle you and give you extra help if you need it. And Caribbean programs aren't like that always. They're kind of survival of the fittest. You got to keep your head down and really grind it out there.
When did you decide you want to go into emergency medicine?
Ooh, good question. Probably third year of medical school. You kind of start seeing this and that. And, I got lucky being, trying to base all my rotations out of the Atlanta area, staying close to home with my buddies and my family. Yeah. I was able to do a rotation at Grady, which was obviously a great experience and, helped springboard me into matching into an emergency medicine program.
Sure.
Back in the day when I was coming through, emergency medicine for about a 5-year stretch was the most competitive residency to get into. So especially as a Caribbean program, I was very proud of myself to be able to pull that off because that was no small feat there.
Where did you do residency?
Ended up at the University of Toledo, up in Ohio. So that's what we, my now wife, we got engaged actually at my med school graduation. She was from Ohio. She'd been born in Toledo. Her godmother had a lot of family there. And, staying at Grady would have been great. As a Caribbean grad, those chances were slim's probably an overstatement. So Toledo was her second choice. And they obviously had to let her have a strong say in where we were going if I was dragging her away from all her stuff for a couple of years. So Toledo's what worked out. And, again, more life experience. Toledo is an interesting area. It's kind of like I guess it's not a big city, but every kind of city. The inside the city was pretty bad and terrible, and you didn't do a whole lot there. And you had some nice little suburbs, which was what we lived in. And like one of the hospitals was in one of the suburbs, so you got to see that side of medicine. We rotated the University Hospital as well as kind of the Grady equivalent in Toledo, the big hospital downtown. So it was I think a unique program, the way it kind of spread you out, because you got to see like the academic side of medicine, which again is different than, your big level 1 tertiary care facilities, the downtown Grady style, which is everything gets transferred in there because you've got all the backup you need, versus the smaller community hospital, which is, where most of us, or our parents, when they kind of get sick and go, that's kind of the place that they're usually going. So I thought it was a great program for the diversity of the environments that'll let us kind of practice and learn in.
Well, it's funny, when he chose ER, all of us thought, well, that's perfect because this guy had all the energy in the world. We'd be up all night doing stuff and he'd be the first one up, like, let's go to the tailgate, and we're like, gosh, couldn't keep up with it. So
a lot's changed.
Made a lot of sense.
Not a lot's changed. I do sleep in a little bit more than I used to, but it's the only thing that's changed. We get there.
Do you work weird shifts?
Weird shifts. As I worked till 1 last night,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing about the ER. Sometimes the tougher thing is, today it may be 6 a.m, and tomorrow it might be an overnight. And, they obviously try to stack them in a way that makes that manageable. Doesn't always work out. We joke, we call them, sometimes you get off at 6 a.m. after a night shift and accidentally you get scheduled at 6 a.m. the next day. So you don't really have a day off. It's 24 hours, but you don't really have a day off. So it is shift work. So I go home, my phone doesn't ring. Like I'm not worried about being on call, which is one of the big draws of emergency medicine. I wear pajamas to work every day, wearing scrubs and tennis shoes. Like that's a plus.
Ben was worried you were going to wear those. He's like, tell him not to wear these scrubs.
No, I don't want to feel like, especially for sitting in a room with a couple of PI lawyers. No. That's wearing scrubs around. That's like waving a big flag. Look at me. No.
One of my best friends is an orthopedic surgeon, and he wears scrubs everywhere. I mean, we've gone to weddings and this man's in scrubs at a wedding. I'm like, Daniel, put some clothes on. Like, what are you doing?
No, I get out of those as quick as I can. But it is a perk of the job. Yeah. No.
Yeah. What hospital did you say?
I'm out at Piedmont Cartersville now.
Piedmont Cartersville.
Yeah.
You've been there a while.
Yeah. Then I was in town in Roswell at North Fulton for a couple of years. And then I've been out there probably 7 now.
Do you ever pick up like at other hospitals?
That's how no, not anymore. That's how the Cartersville job kind of worked out. Is when I was working in North Fulton, I would pick up a shift or two here or there. And for a while I was driving down. That's how ER works. It's shift work. So whoever they can need bodies, right? And so that's they needed staffing down in Griffin, the company I worked for at the time. My in-laws lived close to Griffin. So we load up and drive down there for 2 or 3 days, work 2 or 3 shifts, and then come back home, for the rest of the month and work everything here. And I literally just got an email, like a recruiter email one day that just said, "Oh, Cartersville's looking for help." And I said, "Man, I can get there in 45 minutes. That's a lot better than going to Griffin. Let's see how that worked out." And it just went from like...
And that's sort of what Jessica does, isn't it?
I mean, she's staffing
like that with doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just how it worked out. 2 to 3 a month turned into 5 or 6, turned into a full-time offer, and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. Is working in the ER like just a constant go, or is there some downtime?
There is some downtime. Every day is different. And it's funny how every ER is different. We joke about where we work all the time because it's not... Most ERs almost it sounds silly to say that they work on a schedule, but like they're almost like predictable. Like most places, Sunday night's busy because people want work notes for Monday morning, and this time of day is better than that time of day. Our hospital's not like that. The people in that county, there's no predicting what they want when they want. You may go see, if you work a couple overnights in a row, you may see 12 or 13 patients one night. You may see 30 the next. I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason for the ebb and flow of volume there. So it's So you absolutely get some downtime, but you also, it's just, that's the environment. Sometimes it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I know North Fulton's I can't remember what level trauma center they have there, but...
Used to be level 2.
Level 2.
There was level 2 at least.
Yeah. I know pretty much everybody here that needs a trauma center goes to North Fulton or Northeast Georgia.
Sure.
I don't think Northside has one. So
yeah, Northside doesn't do any trauma stuff. We're actually, we're at Piedmont Cartersville. We're a level 3 trauma center. I'm pretty sure we're Piedmont's only trauma center.
Okay.
And some of those bigger companies just don't dabble in that.
So you guys are seeing tough stuff.
No, I mean, yes. I think every ER sees lots of tough stuff. When it comes to, if it's a bad car accident, we knife and gun clubs are what we call places like Grady and the hospital. Right. That's a lot more of the downtown stuff. A lot of that stuff kind of will bypass us, understanding, certain limitations that's what the designations mean is they're based on the amount of backup and the amount of specialty services you have to help you with those critical trauma patients. So we have trauma surgeons and neurosurgeons, but there's still things that we can't handle. And again, that's why we're level 3 and not level 2.
What's some of the craziest things you've seen come through?
In terms of trauma,
yeah.
Like trauma always gets interesting, and trauma gets sad. I mean, like one of the case that like stands out and jumps right to my mind is because it's one that will always stick with me. Was a dad who did a bunch of drugs and started freaking out on his wife, and the 14-year-old kid stood up for his mom, and the dad picked up a knife. The 14-year-old kid ripped it away from him, wound up stabbing the dad a couple times to protect himself and his mom. And then they come in and you get introspective on this. My job was to help the dad.
Right.
Like this guy who's doing drugs, trying to kill his wife, and his kid, he's all cut up and messed up because his kid was protecting him, and I've actually seen the dad later, unfortunately, has not turned his life around. It's just that's kind of the tough. I mean, that's the job. We'll always do it. Do it. But you sit there and think, you're just like, man, we're here supposed to be the good guys helping the good people, and, we're helping the bad guys sometimes too. But like that's one that always jumps out to mind.
Yeah, that's tough.
I had a funny weekend one time. Had a guy come in. He was a security guard at a different hospital. And he was intoxicated. He comes in just running his mouth about how much better his hospital system is than ours. Like that's what he's worried about. He had somehow drunk at like 4 a.m. with his bulletproof vest on in his apartment, started playing with his AK-47, and he had shot himself kind of in the armpit, somehow missed his bulletproof vest.
How do you even
so he's got a bullet hole going in on the side of his chest, and it came out the back, and you could stick your finger in the back part and be like, oh, you can touch his aorta right there. Like he's lucky. He's an inch away from he would have been, never would have been here because he would have been dead.
Wow.
And that was just funny because he literally was just, you guys suck. We're better. It was just like, what are you talking about?
And yet you're here.
So he's got a bullet wound.
And that's how he got there. And then the very next night, this lady and her husband, the husband came in. They were eating at Waffle House, same at like 4 a.m. And he said something smart. So she stabbed him in the chest with the steak knife at Waffle House.
The steak knife at Waffle House.
Things go down at Waffle
Just,
House.
Yeah, Waffle House. It's, as much as we all love Waffle House, I don't know it's the smartest place to be at 4 a.m.
That's hilarious.
So, I mean, that's, and all the in-betweens. But, those trauma stuff keeps things interesting. But
Yeah.
you get some tragic stuff, but sometimes some funny stories that you can laugh about later.
And you guys see a lot of, I guess, this is my understanding, a lot of people who don't have health insurance come to the ER when they just need general care.
Anything, yep.
Yeah. What do you see the most of, do you think?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. It's kind of hard to say because, everybody's chest pain, belly pain, like tripped and fell, this hurt. We will never get over, but it's also job security, the amount of people that come to the ER because they think they have the flu.
Right.
It's like, I have nothing. Yes, you do. No, you don't. Doesn't matter. We have nothing to offer for you.
Mhm.
So you still see a lot of that. And we've actually had some COVID cases pick up this week. So I'm sure a lot more of that is coming. It's a little early for that time of year, but here it comes, right? So you get a lot of that kind of stuff. Honestly, I think a lot of the uninsured stuff, a lot of times, which doesn't make sense, they want work notes, which is interesting because I guess there's still a lot of jobs out there that don't provide health insurance, which is unfortunate. But you still see plenty of people that come to the ER really just kind of hoping to get a work note.
Just to get a release.
I have a $500 copay. I'm not going for a work note. I'll figure it out. Right?
Exactly. So were you practicing during the pandemic?
Oh, yes.
Where were you then?
At Piedmont Cartersville.
All right. Tell us about that. I bet
so
that was wild.
Interesting. Piedmont Cartersville was the first hotspot in the state. I found our first 2 cases one day. Retrospectively, kind of reviewing charts and stuff. We had a couple the day before that we weren't all over yet. Because the first case was that father-son out in Woodstock. You may not know they were fine, but they had tested positive. So we knew it was here, and we went in the next day. There were a couple of sick people. Actually, I think 2 of them ended up dying that morning, but they didn't really understand at that point that it was COVID. I come in that afternoon, get a chest x-ray. They told us this is like the classic chest x-ray finding to look out for because the tests that's what people forget. The tests weren't readily available back then. Right. People were coming in. Initially, we were like, you probably have it. We don't even have to have a test. Sorry. Right. And then it progressed to, well, here, we're going to swab you. They'll call you with the result in 8 or 9 days, and now we've got one that comes back in an hour. But as that first hotspot, saw the first chest x-ray, was like, oh, crud, call the radiologist. I don't want to scare everybody. What do you think? He's like, yeah, that's what they're saying. He's like, I haven't seen any, but that's what they're saying it's going to look like. So those first 2 patients that I found, were fine, and we were able to kind of send out, and man, was at the tip of the iceberg, out in Cartersville, it all blew up. They had one of the big churches out there had a service. And if someone was like retiring, I think was the story. So it was a huge service. I think it was a choir member or something. And so the choir was full of people, and somebody in the choir had it and went and sang around all those people. And we had that first day. I think another day went by. I show up the next one. I walk in at 10 o'clock for my shift, and the board they're just 80 people in the way, which, if you go down to Grady and you see on TV and stuff, like there are places where 80 people, like Kennestone's like, there's 80 people in the waiting room all the time. We're not that kind of hospital. And there were 80 people in the waiting room. And I called my boss, was like, do you have any idea what's going on up here right now? And he's like, no, what? I sent him a picture of it. He was like, holy cow. It's just like the kind of what you do see on TV, sound all call. We only had one other person available to come in and help out. Luckily, from a how do you manage that standpoint, so many of them were, oh crap, we were at church and now I've got a stuffy nose, or I've got a cough, and it was people that potentially were exposed.
They were panicking.
And the first 2 weeks was a lot of panic. And then after that's when the panic kind of tailed off. And that's when people started getting real sick, and this is, and if you guys saw the hospitals then, like we were so full as a 100-bed hospital. At one point, I think at our max, we had 152 admitted patients. Wow. Right. So every room in the ER was a patient that was supposed to be admitted. Yeah. We had chairs in the hallway. Yeah. We shut down our waiting room and put up little makeshift curtains to put makeshift rooms in the waiting room. And we put a tent out in the parking lot. And so while you sat and waited, you sat out in a tent for a couple of weeks to kind of help just manage and do what we could do. That was a
weird time.
Pretty dark time. Yeah. That was... It's one of those that's something that'll get me fired up. Chris knows sometimes that doesn't take a whole lot, but the COVID deniers and people that are just like, I don't believe that, and just like, man, what a slap in the face. Some of that stuff is to those of us that lived that, because that was a pretty traumatic time.
And how did you guys handle it? It was really novel. Nobody really knew what to do in the beginning. So how did you guys figure out treatment process?
Well, I think it was easier on my side, right? Because we're frontline, we're the resuscitationists. You come in, you can't breathe, okay, we got to fix that first. And, that was part of the trouble with COVID is if you can't breathe, well, we got to breathe for you. And you put people on ventilators. Well, then we found out, holy cow, these people that go on ventilators. And again, we think it's an infection. We have protocols of how we're supposed to treat infection as tons of fluids. We found out after, 6 or 8 weeks, like, man, these fluids are killing people that have COVID. Oh man, the ventilator's worse so all these things that we traditionally do and still do for, critically ill, whether it's infection or respiratory patients, was detrimental in certain cases and in certain populations for COVID. Yeah. So that was tough. I mean, obviously still had to do what you do. If you come in and you're breathing and your oxygen level's 50%, there's not a whole lot we can do except ventilate you.
Right.
But we also understand putting you on the ventilator, that was going to do worse. And that's where it was so dark, is people would come in, and from the moment I said hello, like I knew this person was going to die. There was nothing we were going to do. The meds weren't going to work. You tried this, we tried that. We did antibiotics, we did steroids. They pulled out the remdesivir. I mean, we did all these things, but you knew pretty quickly. After a while, we saw so many of them that you knew who was just going to die. And, of course, they're asking. That's the tough part of the job. Am I going to die? Am I going to die? And you don't want to lie, so you can't, or not, you have to phrase things. We're going to do, you're in the right spot. We're going to do everything we can. But I mean, you knew right away which ones weren't going to make it.
Scary.
How long did it take until it started kind of level out for you?
It's all such a blur, to be honest.
It really is. Yeah.
Because it was they were so sick it felt like so long. And then now it's like the last 2 years, all the sick people were flu. Like nobody's got sick. I'm not saying, anyway, in my experience, none of the sick people had COVID. So, it was probably that 18 months, that whole second wave kind of came, things petered out, which again was weird in the ER, right? We're shift work, we're paid hourly. All of a sudden, after the first kind of wave came that summer, volumes died down. And that's kind of showed you how people treat the ER, right? That all of a sudden volumes just plummeted, right? People just quit going to the ER. And so then they're cutting hours and they're cutting shifts and, taking your days away. And you're like, well, hold on. You just beat me up and told me it was my job. When everybody's scared of COVID, right? Yeah. It's your job to put on the mask and go in the room. Now, mind you, they were also telling us, hey, this mask that you're only supposed to wear for one, 10-minute patient interaction and throw away, right, we're going to need you to wear that this week, all week, for every patient you see. Right. We don't have enough for you to change every patient like you're supposed to. Like, we don't have a new gown for you to put on for every patient like you're supposed to. We go through that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, we're going to cut you by 4 shifts this month because volumes are down. Yeah. I'm like, well, that's unfortunate. My wallet doesn't like that. I mean, it's still got bills to pay. Right. And that was, and then all of a sudden the second wave comes and it ramps back up and got kind of crazy again.
Did you ever catch COVID?
Not that I know of.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. I've had it 3 or 4.
My wife had it twice. Yeah, that's what my wife had it twice. It was, I think, the first week, I kind of sequestered myself away from everybody. And then it was like, I don't know, we're all healthy. Those are the people having a bad time. Right. I think because Hayden was born kind of my youngest was born kind of in the middle of it. Yep. The other things you don't realize, that people don't know for COVID, it's like my wife actually got put in the hospital for a while we were still under those strict COVID precautions, and no one could go visit her. Yep. So she was on bed rest. She was in the hospital for 5.5 weeks on bed rest, and I was the only person that could go visit her. Mm-hmm. I had a full-time job and 2 other little kids at home. Yeah. And so she had to sit there by herself, or the nurses would let her have a 30-minute walk outside. They put her in a wheelchair, wheel her down, sit out in front of the park in the parking lot, and bring the kids to come see her as often as we could. I mean, that was
I forgot about
other things that COVID did to people.
Now, I had back surgery in June of 2020, and my wife had to drop me at the front door, and then they took me, and she could come with me, which we had 3 kids at the time. It was kind of nice to 3 days in the hospital, just quiet. But the nurses were ticked because I kept Uber Eats and pizza and calzone and stuff to me. They're like, quit ordering food. We're bringing you food. I'm like, that food's terrible. I'm going to have some brought in.
Yeah, that's what my wife said too. Same thing. She said that was the only thing that kept her going, was at least she didn't have to eat the hospital food every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank goodness for DoorDash.
Well, let's get controversial for the interwebs here. What do you think about the vaccine? Was it good? Was it effective?
I mean, again, from the ER experience, I can't not say that it was effective. Right. I think it's a combination of so many people were exposed to COVID and contracted COVID and, ultimately developed antibodies versus the vaccine kicked up. I mean, you can say what you want. That's how we got out in front of this. It's how, just said, for the last 2 years, the people that have been sick from viral upper respiratory stuff have all been flu patients the last couple of years. It hasn't been COVID patients. And I think, in my mind, that was part of the issue. Was we talked about it was a novel virus. It was an animal virus. Our bodies didn't know how to respond to it. And I mean, the science showed initially it was almost like an overreaction from our immune systems that made everything so much worse. Yeah. And so I can't help but believe a combination of literally everybody got it, and people that didn't get it or had it and didn't want it again got the vaccine, and now it's turned into just a normal cough and cold virus.
Yep.
So I can't help but think it was, a success.
I listen to too many podcasts, and a big topic lately has been vaccine injuries. Do you think that's a thing?
So the vaccine injury stuff, haven't read a ton, done a ton of research on that. I'm never going to say never, right? No science is perfect. No medicine is perfect. Everything we do, there's a risk benefit analysis, right? Everybody thinks, I'm nauseous, give me Zofran. Zofran has side effects too, right? Everybody just wants the cough medicine. Cough medicine has side effects too. So everything we do, we have to, we do it because we think there is a better benefit than there is risk, but there's always risk. So could there be real stuff there? I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's something, allergies and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to argue any of the side effects. I mean, I saw people and friends that got the vaccine and then had weird stuff happen like right after.
Sure.
So I think there were certainly some side effects. So, anytime there's weird side effects means there could be bad outcomes related to it.
Yeah, sure. I haven't put on my tinfoil hat yet to think it's some big conspiracy, but there's a lot of folks out there that do.
Sure. One of my best friends, I won't call him out. His wife does some of that stuff, but he's one of the ones that he got COVID and was miserable, and he was like, I'm first in line when that vaccine gets approved.
Right.
And then he got, I'm pretty sure it was a lymph node in his chest wall. It was as big as a baseball from the vaccine. And it was just like, he was like, what, did this just give me cancer? He's calling me over to look at it. I'm like, I don't think so. I was like, let's just give it a little bit. And the second one,
that, we've called Dr. Matt many times.
Just for, hey, what do you think about this? This is for anybody.
What's your copay for him?
Yeah, right.
If you don't have a friend that's a doctor, get one. That's the best thing in the world.
So I watched him go through it, and that's what his wife has some interesting takes on some of that stuff now.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, anything can happen.
Sure.
I know cause and effect is hard to tease out and prove sometimes, but in that instance, his whatever this thing was on his chest, I think it was a lymph node, was pretty evident something weird happened the day that he got the vaccine, right? So
did you drain it for him?
I left it alone.
Okay.
I looked at that one. I was like, I don't think this is an infection, so we're not going to touch that. Let's just give that some time. And it went away. This is the same guy. This may be TMI. That again, he lives across the street, so he can have a lot of fun on the weekends.
Yeah.
And we were having fun one fall. I think it was fall or summer last year, and they knocked a bottle off the counter, and he kind of did the whole like stick your foot under it thing.
Right.
And he missed, and it bounced, and it broke, and it cut his toe. And so he's bleeding everywhere. And so it's kind of late at night. So we're doing, we'll say, the best we can.
Right.
To fix that up for him. And he calls me 2 days later. He's like, I can't move my little toe. Is that a problem?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you might want to go see somebody about that. That one, I can't fix that one, man. He still can't move it. They decided not to fix it, but yeah.
That's funny.
So sometimes having the doctor on call isn't always what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Situational anyway.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to what you're doing at the time. I've had stitches when my friends are having a little bit too much fun. So
yeah,
I get it.
It's sometimes it's easier. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
You get the phone call. Like my favorite story, we have a kid on our baseball team. They live around the corner, and he's just the funniest kid. He's the kid that like we've got great videos. Poor guy. He'll hear this when his graduation video.
All our kids with all the videos now, their life is totally
different. Our first tackle football game. Then it's one. He's the classic kid that if this is going to happen to one kid, it's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
We come busting out through the banner. Some poor little cheerleader's a little too far out.
Oh, man.
Boom. He drills her. Just takes her out. We went baseball this year. We get a park with a short porch, and a bunch of our boys got to all hit their first home run. That little guy rounds first base. His foot lands on first base line right out from under him. He just barrel rolls down the line. We're like, Joe is going to have the best graduation video. We got all his first football game. He takes out the cheerleaders. First home run. He trips over first base. He's just the type of kid that's, if it's going to happen to anybody, it's going to happen to him. Well, sure enough, his parents put a pool in, and I'm on my way about to leave the hospital. My wife texts me. She's like, do you have any lidocaine? I'm like, crud, what happened?
Yeah.
She's like, it was not us, but we're going to go over to Joe's house. He's got a fish hook stuck in his forehead. Oh, God. So they put the pool in. His older brother's out there practicing casting in the swimming pool, and somehow throws one back and hooks Joe in the forehead. And so we have to go over it, 8:30 at night in the dark by the pool and and my wife, look, they actually got it out before I got there. My wife is a nurse practitioner, and so she has experience doing that stuff. So she went over, and between her and his dad, they were able to get the hook out.
Oh, my God. Joe and I have got a lot in common. Sounds like I got hooked in the eyebrow when I was in 6th grade. My buddy went to cast, and when he came back, he snagged me.
Ugh.
I mean,
that's
some of the worst pain I've ever
You
experienced.
nearly lost an eye.
Yeah,
That was a close one. Yeah, that could be bad.
It was bad. Well, let's switch over and talk about personal injury for a minute. So we haven't had a doctor on here that can answer these questions. Obviously, we do a lot of car wrecks, deal with a lot of car wrecks. I'm sure you see a lot of car wrecks. What do people need to do when they're in a car wreck and they're coming to the ER? What do they need to tell you? That type of thing.
Sure. Relevant and pertinent information for the ER staff is with little things, understand the kind of mechanism, how fast they were going, right, where they were sitting, where they were in a seatbelt, right. So those, and then it's all stuff that we pretty easily be able to tease out, and I don't know what your all's advice to your clients is, but there's this misnomer that's like, well, if you're in a car accident, you have to go to the ER and you have to get checked out. I'm like, well, does anything hurt?
Right.
Do you have any problems? If not, then you probably don't need to come to the ER.
Right.
And again, that's the medical side of things.
Sure.
Sometimes patients will get frustrated. I'm like, well, I don't know. I think everything's fine. Nothing hurts. Aren't you going to do an X-ray? I was like, well, sure. Of what? I don't know. I mean, that's the conversation that's been had more than once with an ER doctor and a car crash victim. And so I don't know that every patient needs to have one. And also, if they don't have any pain or injuries, they're probably not going to meet you guys either.
Exactly.
Right? So, so that's what's interesting because we always laugh about that. And then, I got to get checked out.
Yep.
I don't know what you want me to check out. So obviously, if anything hurts, we need to see it. So I think they should come and get checked out. And I think timeliness is important too.
Sure.
It wasn't a car crash, but I just had a patient last night who decided to sit around and wait all weekend, and something that probably we could have changed if he'd come in on Friday. He sat around and waited, a couple of days. And car crash injuries are kind of the same thing.
Right.
If you kind of come in and if it hurts, come let us look at it because it may change your outcome rather than waiting 2 or 3 days.
Well, that's kind of our advice too. If you don't have pain, then forget about it. There's nothing there. But if you are hurting, go see somebody and get it documented at least so that you know where you need to go with it if it gets worse.
Yeah.
Okay. This may be dumb, but can you tell how a patient presents, like basically what happened with the wreck? Like, is it pretty common about like a hit in the back versus T-bone?
I mean, not necessarily. I was just talking to my colleague about this last night. He had a case that seemed very nothing, and there were a couple of kids in the car, and one of the kids had really bad injuries, and just like he joked about how he got very lucky because the kid was very normal, and for no good reason he just kind of retched. And it was like, that was weird.
Yeah.
And he kind of thought about it and stared at it and ended up doing some CT scans. Kid had some really bad injuries when like everybody else was kind of fine. And the kid was fine. The kid wasn't complaining. Like, it was just like, nothing struck him as abnormal until he did that.
That's wild.
And so that's where, that's kind of where they call it the art of medicine, right? It's not all science, right?
Sure.
There's easy things that we know, okay, we have to image this. We don't have to image that. We know what to expect. But teasing out, something was different with that kid. I think that's the perfect example, right? Because he was fine. The kid was doing all the same things as his brothers. He had 3 other brothers there. They were all fine. They were all kind of doing the same thing except for that. And being able to tease out what was different or what seems different, that's where the job can get tricky.
Yeah.
That's why we spend a lot of time learning how to do it.
We often get a complaint from clients, and whether it's justified or not, they'll say they'll go to the ER and maybe that something was missed. So what do you do? What do you put in place to make sure that you try to catch that thing, like the kid that retched? Like, how do you?
Sure. That's the tough part, right? Because it's not a perfect art or a perfect science. We miss stuff all the time, unfortunately, because things are so atypical, and so things that may not seem like a big deal. That wind up being a big deal later. And I think that's a good example. This kid, retching, if he doesn't retch, my buddy told me, he's like, I would have sat on him and watched him for a while just because, that's what we do. And so it probably would have made, I think as some more bruising came up, an hour later, like after he got the CT scan, I was like, well, that looks ugly. He went back to see the kid. Now all of a sudden there was all this swelling on his head and stuff that, we would have clued us in, but initially it wasn't there. So that's some of the stuff we do is, a lot of people are in such a hurry, to get to the ER and get out of the ER. And a lot of times we're like, nah, we're going to hang out and watch you for a little bit because we don't know. And sometimes something looks different an hour later.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm finding already is the second, third day, or they feel a lot worse than that initial day anyway. So
sure. And I do counsel people on that. Because it's not uncommon, right? If you get in a car accident and if I do see you and check you out and we may scan everything and everything looks normal, and I still warn you, look, you're going to feel worse tomorrow because that part is normal. But that's also tough where sometimes the patients kind of think, well, that's why they sit around is because they're like, well, I feel I feel okay today. And they come in and says, well, I feel worse now that it's 24 hours later. I do feel worse. So that absolutely happens frequently. And that's kind of tough. That makes it tough to assess injuries sometimes as well.
Yeah.
But that's the stuff that we look at is, the mechanism, the speed, where does it hurt? If it hurts on your arm, well, an arm that hurts is a lot easier to assess than a belly is that hurts from a clinical exam standpoint, right? I can push on your belly, but can I see the inside? No. I can see all sides of your arm. I can squeeze on it and move it and just tell pretty easily if you've got a fracture or not.
Right.
Where internal injuries can be really tough sometimes.
I see a lot of concussions that aren't diagnosed initially too.
And the concussion, and that's tough. And that's because concussions are on a spectrum. We see a lot of people that come to the ER. I said, well, I might have a concussion. They told me I need a CT scan. Yeah. We don't do CT scans if we think you have a concussion, right? I do a CT scan if I think you're bleeding your brain.
Right.
Right. And that's when you look at head injuries and car crash victims, it's like, again, mechanism, impact. Did you hit your head versus did your brain just get rattled?
Yeah.
Back even when I was training, if you didn't hit your head, you probably did have a concussion.
Right.
Well, now that we know just the brain shaking abruptly it squishes forward into your skull and you can get concussion symptoms even without hitting your head in a kind of a big accident like that. So, concussions are kind of tough because again, the same as you're in a car accident, your head hurts a little bit, but you didn't hit it.
Right.
Well, but then the next day you wake up, headache, you're sensitive to light, you feel nauseous and foggy. Well, those are all concussion symptoms that you didn't have the day before. And so that's where concussions can be on that spectrum of things that are, don't necessarily manifest immediately.
Right.
But you would hope that, again, they've been screened for risks of bleeding. Right.
Yeah.
Because again, that's what I can. If I send you home and they come and see you guys and someone else tells them a week later, no, you had a concussion.
Right.
I don't care about that. If they come in and somebody else scans them a week later and they've got a brain bleed that was from, that's a big deal. And then that's, I feel like that's my job is there a brain bleed or not? If someone tells them they have a concussion later, we can live with that.
Yeah.
It's the bigger catastrophic stuff that we really don't want to miss.
And I tell people a lot of times too, I think you kind of hinted to it, the science has changed pretty much. If you're in a car wreck with enough force, you're going to get a concussion.
Yeah.
It might not manifest into serious symptoms, but you probably got a concussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, and again, as brain science has developed, the Concussion was the movie, right? The Will Smith movie.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
The guy that looked at all that stuff, and you remember, was it Chris Henry, the wide receiver, about 10 years ago, played for the Bengals. He had a couple, he ended up dying, and they dedicated his brain to research, and it was the CTE research they looked into. They went back and looked at his football career, and he was like, okay, he's had 2 or 3 concussions, and then they dissected his brain, and they found evidence of 273 brain injuries.
Right.
Oh, my God.
And you're like, okay, so we don't know what can cause a concussion. It's not getting leveled on the football field. It's not falling out of the tree and hitting your head.
Yeah.
Obviously, these things that we think are not significant impacts can still do real brain trauma.
One of those massive athletes. I mean, every time they hit somebody, that's like a car wreck in itself.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, wow.
It really is.
How far is that kind of that medicine and research coming along on that?
Well, again, that's not the world that I work in. So, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of a lot of it.
With it or...
Nah, I mean, because it doesn't change a whole lot for us in terms of, diagnosing, but that's what I think we're a lot more liberal throwing the diagnosis around. I mean, I tell people that all the time. And again, I'm a football coach and kids bump their heads and, okay, my head hurts. Well, let's give it 10 minutes. Does it still hurt 10 minutes from now?
Right.
If they're like, no, and they're running around on the sideline spraying water bottles on each other. Okay. Right. I don't think that's a thing. But if they're still having a headache, it's like, all right, we're taking your helmet away. You're going to sit down today because you got to kind of watch and see how the symptoms progress because, we don't know who's going to still have a headache in a little bit or tomorrow. And so that's where it gets tough in sports. Because you can lie through this stuff. I mean, when I was at Georgia, I got knocked out I love that. I got knocked out against Florida on ESPN and went and sat on the wrong team's bench. And I was
on national television.
Yeah, on ESPN. I woke up. We had a friend that we went to high school with. It was a different school. I woke up to a voicemail from her being like, are you okay? I saw we were at dinner last night and I saw you get hit. I think that's where it's tough too is being 18, 19 years old, I wanted to play. Like they kept me out for a little bit. They did some testing. It took a couple of days for me to kind of pass the stuff to get released. But then I got hit again and I didn't really say anything. I got hit pretty hard. My dad knew I got hit hard because he could tell I was pretty glazed over afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I told him I was fine and I stayed in the game. It was the SEC tournament. And I was like, I'm still playing.
Right.
And my dad was furious at the trainers because he could tell how out of it I was like right after. And this was like 2 weeks later. Yep. And he was like, you guys never should have let him go back in. And they were like, well, he said he's fine. that's what's tough too. I mean, that's where you're
Yeah.
seeing all this stuff in the NFL, having these independent observers being like, I don't care what he says. Like, I saw
Right.
he did this, he did that. Like, of course they're going to tell you they want to go back in. And that's where it gets tough from an athlete standpoint is, people want to play. If they're going to lie, they're going to try to go back in. And that's not always in their own best interest.
I think normal people too, especially in accidents, you want to get back to life. Like, you don't want to be laying on the couch for 2
Right.
weeks. But so they're like, yeah, I'm feeling fine. Headaches are what they are. And just
Right.
move on.
Yeah. So concussions are a tough one. And they can be scary, but they can also, just be sore for a couple of days. So I don't think anybody needs to be, not trying to sound alarm bells on anybody that they really need to freak out anytime they get a concussion, but it is important to listen and do what the doctor says to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So have you had any testifying time in court on body injuries or wrecks? Or?
So I did. I was called one time. I was the treating physician that got called as the expert witness it was a car accident case here in the county. It was a deputy, I think a sheriff's deputy or state patrolman that was parked on the side of the road for like construction stuff, and someone barreled into the back of him, and he had some pretty significant orthopedic trauma. And they ended up calling me. They were talking about obviously could this wreck be consistent with those injuries? I mean, they were kind of layup questions about his injuries and the mechanism and that kind of stuff. And then the I guess it would be the defense or plaintiff's attorneys, whoever the patient the person who hit the police officers.
Defense attorney, yeah.
Defense attorneys then they were coming in and asking me about concussions because I think the client had been charged with driving under the influence, and they were trying to pin me in a corner saying that just head trauma from the accident would have been the reason they were acting that way and the reason their eyes didn't track. And so some of the things that the arresting officers had performed on scene that made them suspect DUI, they were trying to set me up to say that a concussion would have been the cause of those, not the fact that he or she was under the influence.
Did you treat the defendant as well, or just
didn't know anything about that one, just the officer. Yeah.
It's a weird line of questions.
It caught me off guard. Again, you guys probably have taken prepped witnesses that you're going to put on the stand, and this was pretty informal as opposed to some other things I've done where it's just like, here's the chart, these are the things we're going to ask you. There was no expect these questions from the defense. They didn't throw any of that at me. So I was pretty caught off guard when they started trying to say, don't you think it was just a concussion was the reason that the speech was slurred and they were stumbling around? That's you would hope that's not part of the process, but I understand that's the world you guys live in too.
Yeah. That would just make me absolutely giddy if a defense attorney was asking those questions, because we won at that point. Like, there's no question about it. That's a good one.
I think the jury would see through that.
So keeping it on the law track, what'd you think about your buddy here coming over to the dark side of personal injury?
It was a little tough. I haven't read him. I haven't talked to him about it yet. I haven't got to talk to him about it yet, because I have some experience in the medical malpractice stuff and have been through that song and dance, and it's tough to understand normal, rational people can work on that side of it as well. That's a tough pill to swallow.
If it helps, we don't do med mal. I joke with my buddy Daniel all the time, too. I honestly believe that doctors hate lawyers more than insurance companies hate lawyers.
You're right.
I almost feel like you guys would take a class in med school where they're like, hate lawyers. This is what you say to them.
It's it's been society's changing and it's becoming more of an issue. From my, again, as a standpoint as a physician, I think just the society in general is a little too litigious. But that is society. But it's really carrying over into medicine, and I think the side for the physician side of this is like, at some point it's going to go too far.
Sure.
Right. At some point, Georgia's becoming bad. It's going to become a medical wasteland, right? You're going to run physicians out of the state. People aren't going to want to come practice here because of the risk and the rate of litigation.
Or your insurance becomes so expensive you can't afford it.
Yep. And that's what, people, I think, your average Joe doesn't think about that kind of stuff, but that's a harsh reality a lot of places are coming to, and tort reform is important, but it's not the end game, and it is a scary reality that doctors are just going to start saying like, no, we're not going to go practice there.
I've never looked into it either, but I bet an ER physician sees more malpractice claims than probably any other specialty, because you guys are dealing with it immediately. And if you don't catch it,
sure. I don't know the numbers. I know it's basically the statistics bear out that you're guaranteed to get sued once in your career, and like you're 50% likely to get sued twice. It's the world we're living in.
Yep. We're likely to get sued for malpractice as lawyers. It's going to happen.
What's going to happen, right?
Yep.
And I'll never forget. been in 2 med mal cases. And the first one, when I was talking about it a little bit with one of my buddies, it's like, he's like, it's the cost of doing business.
Yep.
Right. It just is what it is. And I think that's unfortunate, because going through malpractice claims, it's stressful, right? It takes away time that you're not paid for from your family. It's not, even though they say it's part of the job, it's not. Right. My job's to go to the hospital and treat patients. I work in the emergency room. Sitting in a deposition for 4 or 5 hours is time away from my kids and time on my day off that you're not paid for, and preparation for that. And then, man, God forbid, trial time. It is part of the job, but it's not. And it really is something that can put any physician, really through the ringer, both emotionally and physically, and kind of makes you question your being as a physician. And that's at the end of the day, I think everybody would want doctors to still be there to take care of them, right?
Yeah.
Doctors do a lot of good in this world, and for some reason, a lot of people don't see it that way.
And I think it's like anything else. I mean, there are some physicians who probably don't do the best job.
Sure.
But I think for the most part, you guys try to go in, especially in the ER, you're trying to save a life. That's your job. I think you guys try your best to do, and sometimes you're overworked, sometimes you're tired. I get it, but yeah, you do the best you can.
Well, and it's interesting, and the dynamic of being in the ER, because most of the time, hopefully, when you go to the emergency room, it's the first time you've met that doctor, right? I mean, we obviously have people we see plenty, but in general, it's going to be your first interaction with that doctor. And we get patients that come in that their doctor, their primary doctor, their surgeon, whoever that they have a relationship with, that they've seen or met multiple times, is not doing a good job. They're not doing the right thing.
Right.
And we kind of have to pick up the pieces and clean up the mess. And then yet somehow we're always the ones that are going to get sued in that mess, not the one who hasn't been doing a good job. Yeah. But because they like them, they have got rapport with that physician, they just kind of leave them off the hook.
Yep. I'd say we probably get 10 calls a week on med mal stuff. Like I said, we don't do it, but it seems like it's always more of a undesired outcome rather than malpractice. So somebody went in for knee surgery and their knee's not working correctly. And it's like, well, the surgery was fine. Mm-hmm. The results just aren't what you wanted.
Sure. The example that I use.
Expectation.
Right.
Almost.
Well, and I think a lot of watched The Pit recently. I don't know if you guys have watched that one yet.
No.
It's the guy from ER, Noah Wilder or something like that. Oh, yeah. It's on Max or something. It's about a shift in the ER.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good dramatization, but there's some real life stuff that comes up from the provider side that you're like, a lot of this stuff is real. And he addresses some of that. Just because you see a doctor, just because you go to the hospital, there are things that aren't going to get fixed. Right. I hear people talk all the time. They see me in my scrubs, we talked about earlier, and they say, where do you work? And that comes up. And, my dad went here and they killed him. And it's like,
sure.
Okay.
We get it
Could they have killed him? Maybe. I'm not saying no. But you go to the hospital because you're sick, and you've kind of acknowledged that you're sick and something bad may happen. People die in the hospital every day at every hospital, right? Yep. That doesn't mean the hospital didn't kill him, but that's people's perception. Sure. Is my family member went there and that hospital killed him because they didn't live.
Right.
That's life. That's reality. Is, you can beat your body up and smoke your cigarettes and drink all your beers and do all the things you're not supposed to do. And at some point it kind of catches up with you, and your body's going to have enough of it, no matter what anybody does for you.
And I think on the family side too, it's kind of part of grief. You want to be angry with somebody. Mm-hmm. There's an easy target.
Sure.
So you blame her.
Yeah. Well, and I think that what I've seen to understand from people is they think you guys are like superhuman. Like you have all the answers, can do everything, can fix everything. And then when you don't, they're like, well, you must have done something wrong then.
You see, it's that, and it's even, in the world, the annoying world of patient satisfaction, where you're going to get a survey after you come and see me, and how good of a job did I do?
Right.
You've come in thinking, I need Dr. Womack in the ER to fix this. And you come and see me, and it's like, hey man, I understand that. This is not something we fix in the ER.
Right.
Here's the phone number of a doctor who can fix that for you. Here's some medicine to try to make you feel better until then. That's all I can offer in this issue. Yeah. Well, then they're mad that I didn't fix their problem, right? And then I get a bad satisfaction score, and my bosses don't care that it didn't matter, that I didn't, there was nothing for me to do for you. They don't care about that.
Right.
They care that you only gave me a 3 on the survey. Right. My patient satisfaction score stinks. So I mean, from literally the most minor injury possible, all the way to, someone did die that there was nothing anybody could do for them. The expectations that people have when they present, like you said, if they're not met, the patients and the patients' families have all the power in that scenario, whether it's, bringing legal action and litigation versus just complaints that actually do affect, our job.
Yeah.
Because you guys are mostly there to triage and stabilize, right? For the most part.
Right. So that's, obviously to identify, to fix, to stabilize. But yes, if it's a trauma victim, right, my job is to resuscitate them, to stabilize them so they can get to the operating room. If it's a fracture, to find it, to reduce it, to splint it, surgery in a couple of days when they go see the orthopedic doctor, so we're not providing definitive care for a lot of that stuff. Right. So yeah, and that's, sometimes they expect that, but that's just not the reality. If you need a gastroenterologist and you come to the ER, well, no problem. I'm going to give you the phone number for gastro. I'm not one, right? That doesn't make me one. I can't force one to come in and see you today, right? If you want to see a GI doctor, you go see him in the office. And I think a lot of society has some issues with that.
I wonder. I've always wondered if they thought you guys do it all, because they kind of do that to us, where you're a lawyer, so you know how to do a divorce, you know how to do this, you know how to do it. I'm like, never. I don't have any clue how to do that.
I tell people all the time, if you get a DUI, don't call me. I'm going to get you in more trouble than you're already in.
No, I mean, that is true. Just recently, we had a patient, for some reason, brought their kid in. They had been to CHOA twice, and CHOA had done all the things, done a great job, thorough workup, and says you just need to see a GI doctor. And for some reason, they went backwards and went from the children's hospital and came to see me. And she was like, well, you can't just do this endoscopy? I was like, well, I'm the ER doctor. No, I don't do endoscopies at all, number one. I was like, number two,
stitches?
I was like, number two, now you're at an adult hospital. Like, we don't treat kids. So no one does. Like, I don't even have a doc that'll do that for you here. I mean, but that's a perfect example. That's what people think and expect is, can't you just do that? No, that's not how it works.
What can people do when they come see you to help you do your job better?
Well, I think just, being open and honest, right? You'd be surprised how many people don't want to tell the whole truth about stuff, and it's tough sometimes if you're, I don't know if saying taking it seriously is the best word, but like, if I ask, do you have any medical problems? And you say no. And then I say, well, what kind of medicines do you take? And you take 4 blood pressure medicines, diabetes medicines, you had a heart stent, so you're on it's like, hold on, well, those are all the things that I need to know, right? So you can't tell me you don't have any medical problems and tell me you take 12 medicines, right? Understanding, knowing your body, knowing your medical history and your surgical history. If you come in with belly pain and it's in the right lower quadrant, I think appendix immediately without doing anything. Remembering that you had your appendix taken out when you were 11 is very important to me. And you'd be surprised how many people forget that, I don't have an appendix. It's like, so silly. It seems trivial, but that's the real world of people. That's how people kind of tell their story when they come to the ER.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, I know we touched on a little bit just talking in the beginning, but you're an advocate for tort reform, it sounds like.
Sure.
What do you have in mind? What do you want to see done?
Well, I mean, assigning numbers is way outside of what I think the average person should do, right? And so you're taking a jury of supposedly just average people that you're kind of chosen at random, we'll say, and you're putting them for my field, right? You're putting them in a medical malpractice case, right? They have no medical experience. So they're relying on lawyers, and yes, there's expert witnesses, and there's going to be all this testimony to come in. And then you're asking those 12 average people that don't know anything about the medicine, anything about costs and finances to then come up with a number to assign to a case. What's the value of the pain and suffering, of the damages and whatnot? And those numbers can get crazy. And I was a part of a case where it was a kind of a nuclear verdict is the terminology that insurance companies have started using.
Right. We're familiar.
Sure. And so, and it's one of those where it's like, it doesn't make sense from a medical standpoint to ask 12 people off the street to judge medical care.
Would you rather have a panel of physicians determine it?
I think absolutely, right? Because the idea is, the law is, the standard of care, and in Georgia was their gross negligence and a gross deviation from the standard of care, right? And the problem is, you get into court, you give one definition of the gross negligence of standard of care, and Spencer gives a different one, right? Well, now what the actual meaning of gross negligence is doesn't matter. Whoever sold their definition the best is what matters, right? And so now you've taken the law and interpretation of the law and push that on to people that have no experience making that determination.
I understand that. What would keep a panel of physicians, though, from just a good old boy system of backing up their colleagues?
Well, I think you'd be surprised. Because I think we all do it for the right reasons, right? And every hospital has a peer review process, right? So when a case, something doesn't go right, this case goes, there's in my ER group, like my director and my associate medical director, they review all those cases, right? And they can either say, I heard there is a complaint, but I would have done it the exact same way. And if they both look at the chart and say, we both would have done everything exact same, there's no need to move forward for that, right? Where they may say, all right, I do have a little issue with what was done here. Let's take it to the formal peer review committee. So then you take physicians that aren't ER doctors that kind of can look at it and say, and it gets a little different because they don't know how things work in the ER also, but at least it's a trained medical mind that has understandings of anatomy and medications and how things kind of work that way. And they sit around a table and they discuss, what could have been different in that case to determine, was there a real deviation from the standard of care or not, right?
So if they determine that there was a deviation, do you want that same panel determining the damages, or would you be comfortable with then a jury of your peers determining damages? Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't think I've ever thought of that, because I think the problem is, and this is, I think, my perfect example. In my case, when we sat there and listened through jury selection, as they went through, they bring in the panel of people, potential jurors, and they're whatever you call it. And they asked a gentleman who worked in insurance, and they said, would you be comfortable awarding hundreds of millions of dollars in this case?
Right.
He said, absolutely not. And they said, well, how come? He says, because that's the world I work in for my business. And if you're worth that much money, you don't get insurance for that much money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like the same people that work in that world, they understand that even if you're worth $100 million, your insurance policy is not going to give you $100 million should something happen to you. Right. And so then to me, I think that kind of shows that the way society and kind of financial institutions look at worth and value those things, that they don't put those high dollar amounts on it. So how do you tease out what the real number should be? I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think certainly, coming after someone for hundreds of millions of dollars is the answer either.
So, and you might, I don't know if you know this or not, but in this last round of tort reform that just passed, we can no longer do that. So we can't ask the prospective jurors, could you award $15 million? We're not allowed to be specific at all. We think we can say, are you comfortable awarding a large amount of money? But then it becomes subjective on what's a large amount of money.
Sure.
Some people, $10,000 is life-changing money. Other people's is, it's not. So we've got to be creative in how we ask that. But we can't ask, can you award hundreds of millions of dollars? We also can't tie it to anything that's not related to the case. So it can be, Matt Ryan makes $40 million a year. Would you award somebody $40 million for this case? So I think they have changed that for you. I don't love it because I like the idea of being able to anchor and ask a jury. I like to be able to find out if that juror has any sort of bias. So if the case is worth $1 million and that juror says there's no chance that I could ever give somebody $1 million, well, then you don't need to hear this case. You're biased. On the flip side, if I ask the juror, could you award $1 million? They're like, I could award $55 million. You probably don't need to hear it either because you're going to inflate the number too big. So we try to find the best 12. And I do think we've got the best system for doing it, especially if there's some parameters put on it like they're trying to do now. But don't think that an administrative panel is as fit to do that because they don't necessarily see the world like ordinary people would see it, because the person who's suing, probably is just a normal person. Whereas the people sitting on the panel are educated physicians and they probably make more money than your average person, that type of thing. Maybe not if they're in the educational world, but, if they're actual treating physicians. So I don't think that then you're getting a fair slice if they're deciding the damages. But I understand your perspective too. My buddy Daniel says it all the time. It's not a jury of my peers because none of these people are doctors. They don't have the same lifestyle. They haven't gone through the same education. They didn't go through the same stress of getting to where I got. They don't work 100 hours a week in the surgery room like I do. I get it. So it's hard to call them your peers, but they are your community peers. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think I look at it as, defining damages is different too, right? I mean, so obviously there's the economic damages, right? If you can't work, obviously there's medical expenses. That's one thing, and that's a number you can easily quantify, right?
Sure.
You can add up. This is what your salary was. This is what you missed. These are your bills. Here you go. That's a number that you say.
Yep.
And then I think defining pain and suffering is obviously the tough part, right? Because we're not saying you shouldn't get anything, right? But you also look back and say, well, hold on, we got that's the reason doctors carry malpractice insurance to say, okay, God forbid something bad happens. Yeah. Here is some money, right? But then to come after potentially the physician and their livelihood and try to say we could take everything away from you.
Yep.
Is that the answer?
Well, and a tough factor too is, like in the loss of life situation, they award a number of $100 million. Well, that didn't bring the person back for that family.
Right.
They would have probably never made $100 million in their lifetime had they lived another 65, 70 years. But what is it worth for, Susie not to have John in her life anymore? I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, that is a tough question.
Yep.
It is.
And I think the only way you can do it is to let reasonable minds just debate it for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, and if they take that much time, but I feel like the numbers are just getting so blown out of proportion. That's where you're going to scare people off, and where you're going to scare insurance companies off. Because if you see these nuclear verdicts and these big sums of money being awarded, that no one's going to want to practice there, because they're not going to want to take on. If you don't have insurance, right, we're not going to practice, right. So you may even take the doctors out of it. The insurance companies walk away and say, we can't insure. We're not going to insure in this state anymore. We're at too much risk.
Then what happens?
Then the doctors are going to, right? Yeah. None of us are going to practice without insurance.
Right. Oh, no.
And so that's the slippery slope. And again, it's
nice legal term there.
It's something that we're going to get stuck in. It's coming sooner rather than later.
Are you in favor of caps?
I mean, I don't see how. Yes,
okay.
Right. Because I think it's to your point. There is. I understand that, like you said, Susie's without Johnny now for the rest of her life.
Right.
Right. But do you put a whole company out of business? Do you take a doctor's house away and take the roof over his kid's head?
Yeah.
Because of that? I don't think that's the right answer. And that's what this door of just like these unlimited verdicts opens up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and another thing that bothers me with insurance companies is they use this term nuclear verdict. And let's say they go get a $100 million verdict. Well, that doesn't mean they always recover $100 million.
Sure.
The check at the end of that might be $2 million, depending on how the insurance company handled it for the physician on the backside. Now if there's bad faith and stuff involved, then that number can get silly quickly.
Right.
But that's the insurance company's fault. That's not your fault. It's not our fault. They should have done their job.
Sure.
So I wish people would be more transparent with say the verdict was $100 million, but then tell us what you actually paid. That way people don't see this and think, oh my God, they're killing everybody out here and taking houses away.
Right.
Occasionally it does happen, and sometimes it needs to happen. We've got a good buddy who got a massive verdict against an apartment complex that had faulty fire sprinkler systems. Mm-hmm. It caught on fire, burned down, killed a mom and her 2 kids. And it's like, you knew that was going to happen. You were warned that the sprinkler system was malfunctioning. They got popped with a big number, and they should have to fill it a little bit, Sure. And I'm not opposed to them completely losing their license. They almost intentionally took 3 lives that should still be here. So I'm okay with that. And that one's completely recoverable because the insurance company botched it. But had they got that big number and then they actually wrote a check for $2 million, that swings things too. I mean, there's got to be some transparency. So,
well, and I think that's can be different too. And what I do, like a lot of people don't realize this as an emergency medicine physician, most of us practice as independent contractors.
Yeah.
Meaning, right, that we're kind of, even though I'm employed by a company that staffs my emergency department, right? And they still send me paychecks. Technically, I'm kind of still, they don't provide, they cover my malpractice insurance, but I'm still an independent contractor,
sure.
Right? I don't work for the hospital. So if you're suing me for something that happened at the hospital, whether I did anything wrong or not, right? Mm-hmm. You think I'm part of this big entity that has all this money, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm my own entity.
Right. Well, you see it a lot too, where they sue you and the group you work for and the hospital and the nurse.
100%. Yeah, they'll get everybody, and that's where things get slippery. Yes, one of my cases, that's where they went after everybody, and that's kind of the reason, is because they know the hospital has deep pockets, the doctors don't necessarily, but the juries don't understand that, and you're not allowed to break it down. Exactly. That's part of the other problem, is you're not allowed to tell the jury, hey, Dr. Womack has $1 million insurance policy. The doctor over here has $1 million insurance policy. The hospital has a $50 million insurance policy. Mm-hmm. They don't think that. They say, well, we're going to blame this one and this one, and we're going to say it's worth $50 million because we know, because it's all kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So, no, everybody's insured individually, right? And so, but you're not allowed to talk about that and explain that to jurors. And
we would love to be able to talk about that.
For the record, I'm happy telling a jury how much insurance you have. That would make my life easy.
As the doctor, it would make my life easy.
Yeah.
So I think most of us would be like, sure, please tell them that's the big fish sitting down at that end of the table, not right here.
A recent tort reform bill that passed, we can talk about that health insurance, or the defense can, but we can't talk about car liability insurance. So that's
weird. But it sounds like there's some room for compromise there.
Am I incorrect? I tried to read the article and I didn't read the bill, but it sounded like the tort reform bill it wasn't protecting like individuals, it was only protting companies.
It does a little bit of both. And it was weird. They originally couched it like it was going to help physicians. It was supposed to be a medical tort reform bill, and then it completely, in my opinion, went off the rails. You guys got very little protection out of it at all. And what it really helped out was insurance companies. I don't think that it benefited individuals or businesses. I mean, they said it's so businesses don't leave.
Right.
Too many businesses were getting sued for, everyday accidents and stuff, but it ended up just being an insurance bill. And so they get a great benefit now. to the detriment of people who are hurt. And I don't think that anybody, as a matter of fact, I'm going to run a poll in about 8 months to see how many premiums actually went down. It'll be 0. But I don't think anybody's going to feel a benefit from it except for the big insurance companies. And I get it. We've got to have them. You have to have insurance companies so people can do business, so you can practice, so we can practice, so we can have houses. And in case they get hit by a tornado, we can rebuild it. But they shouldn't benefit to the detriment of people who actually got hurt. That's my position on it. I've never once taken somebody's house. We don't do that. If there's no insurance there, there's no insurance. We've never, to my knowledge, busted an insurance policy. So it's pretty rare for those nuclear type payments to actually happen. I think in the tort reform argument, they said it was less than 1% of all verdicts or quote unquote nuclear. So it's not those that are changing the dynamic. But if you don't put some guardrails on it, I understand it can get out of control.
Well, I mean, it's even from the medical side of it. I don't do anything with my company or my practice to deal with the insurance side of stuff, but I have buddies that are medical directors, and that's what he was, a guy that I went to residency with was talking about how much their premiums have gone up in the last 3 years without cases pending, right? So this for no good reason, how much they've gone out. And he brought up the example where the insurance policies now are writing in that. So I said, right now, I have the option of trying to say, like, look, guys, insurance company, I really want you guys to try to settle this. I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to go through it. Maybe I did make a mistake. I'm fine with you guys paying this one out. Versus like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. Fight this tooth and nail. Yeah. Okay. Well, insurance companies are starting to take that decision away from the physicians.
100%.
Because there's too much risk of bad verdicts out there, these nuclear verdicts out there. And I don't think that's right either. Right.
When we have a client sign a release, there's a paragraph in there that says you understand that the defendant in this matter had no say-so in this settlement. We're paying you without their knowledge or without their involvement. It's just the insurance company's decision. You didn't get to say one way or the other.
Yeah, and that's just tough because that's, I don't want to go too far into it, but in a case that felt like extortion to me, right? Because the case was reviewed, case went past peer review twice, right? Wow. Nothing bad happened. But there was a case that was brought against me, and there's absolutely no mistakes made. And could I have fought that and tried to go and spend money and time doing that? Probably could have. I think I had a great chance of winning that one. But in this instance, I did push to settle, having gone through another bad case. I didn't want to deal with any of that kind of PTSD that I suffer from the first bad case. Sure. I was like, look, I don't want to deal with any of this. Let's just try to settle it. And we came to a number. And I think in that instance, it was my choice to settle that one. But I think if I hadn't gone through my other case, I absolutely put my foot in the ground because I know I didn't do anything wrong. I've reviewed the case thoroughly. My boss has reviewed the case. The hospital's reviewed the case. Right. Everyone says there's absolutely nothing different. Back to things happen sometimes, right? Nothing anyone could have done would have helped prevent the bad outcome, or the outcome, not the bad outcome, the outcome for that patient. And now we're going to settle that case because I just think it's something that I don't need to go through emotionally again.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, it's the most cost-effective thing to do is just write a check and get it over with.
Sure. But I think, I had like one of my, again, the buddy on the medical director on peer review reviewed that. And his advice was like, you need to fight this. He's like, we need to set the standard at this hospital that they can't just come in here and bully us out of money. Obviously they know what I've been through and they didn't want to, push me too hard to push back. So they understand my position, but that's what they looked at this as other practicing ER doctors is no, we can't. That was where the word extortion came from. Is he's like, this is extortion. They know they're just trying to bully you out of some easy money on this one.
Well, and the way the insurance company looks at it too is, well, yeah, we can fight it and spend $100,000, or we could write them a check for 15 right now and it just goes away. And let's just let it go away. But you're right. I mean, that affects it. And things they don't talk about too, the hurricanes and all the storm damages in Florida and North Carolina and South Georgia, that affects premiums. Inflation affects premiums. I think claims are actually the smallest part of what affects premiums. It's really, and profits, just insurance companies want to make a profit. That affects premiums. So they don't talk about those. So they just blame us as the bad guys. No. Well, that's an interesting take. I like hearing your side. I really do.
Well, there's a lot there. Like I said, everybody means to do the right thing, right? Sure. I think that's from the medical side of it, is that's where, it gets lost. I'm not saying that mistakes don't happen, but I think it's unfortunate that it's bred a society where no mistakes are allowed. There are cases where there's no mistakes. You can have cases. What am I trying to say here? Sorry. There's cases where there are no mistakes, right? And that the outcome is predetermined basically. And no matter what anybody does, something's not going to go the way the family wants, the patient wants, whatnot. But then the fact that you can blame and sue over that is just tough.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the kind of medical.
So maybe a higher
comes in.
threshold to bring the liability case.
I think so. I'm pretty sure I had a medical student rotating with me recently who was from Canada, and I hope I get this right, but the way he made it, he explained it to me. His mom was an OBGYN.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone wants to bring a claim against her, the claim gets submitted to the College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, who reviews the case, and they're the ones that decide if it then passes to go to a civil suit. If they look at it as a group, as a board, say the standard of care was met here, it goes away.
Yep. And I guess the theory of that is they would want the standard of care to be met.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like,
by the doctors in their group, so you would think they would try to.
Because there's not really personal relationships there. It's not like, it's not the guy that I work with reviewing the case for me.
Yeah.
This is a standardized board that's been probably elected by their peers, right, to review cases. And I think that physicians as a whole, like everybody wants to say, we're all here to help people. No one's going to let someone who's doing a bad job kind of just skate through, right? Because they think there's also educational opportunities there. It doesn't necessarily have to be, monetary damages. There can be some sort of like re-education process for a physician that maybe missed something. Because we want the next patient. You want them to get it right for the next patient. We want the next patient to have a better outcome if there was something missed or something that could have been avoided. Yeah. So that's where I think, modifications to the process could be made that would benefit everybody.
I certainly don't want to be Canada, but I don't have any. I don't know that I necessarily disagree with some sort of initial panel, as long as there's a checks and balances. There's got to be a way for somebody to check what they're doing to make sure they're always doing it correctly. You got to have that. But yeah, maybe it's a conversation that needs to be had.
They get along, maybe a panel of doctors and lawyers.
So if you want to see some fist fights,
we'd have some more claims coming out of that.
Well, let's take it lighthearted and get onto our quick fire and get this man back to his life.
I like it. So Matt's a big football fan. We know your favorite team. Go Dogs, season ticket holder.
Yep.
What do you think about college football this year? What's large playoffs? How are the Dogs going to do? Who's the front runner?
Man, I feel like everybody's down on the Dogs. I don't quite know why. Right? I mean, Gunner came in. All we heard all last year was how Texas was better than us. We just beat them twice. Right? Come on. Like, Gunner came in down at halftime.
Run it back. Do it again.
I think Texas is going to be loaded. I think Ohio State's going to be overrated. I think Notre Dame's going to be overrated. Penn State can't win. So a lot of these top-heavy teams.
So Dogs on top.
So Dogs on top. I'm interested to see what Alabama can do this year. They got a lot of talent. We'll see what Kalen DeBoer brings, because the talent, kind of kept thinking the talent would fall off a little bit. Not that Saban draw was gone, but the talent's not falling off there. So we'll see what kind of metal he's made out of.
I think talent in general is more spread out, though, across the landscape.
Yeah.
It seems that way with the NIL stuff.
Well, the fun was, what's Texas Tech going to do? Right. Yeah. All of a sudden, they got the most expensive roster in the land. What's that going to change for them? And, that's a lot of pressure on that. I don't even know who coaches them now, but that's a lot of pressure on him to be like, hey, we spent $50 million on your roster. You better bring it. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year. I think it's the fun part of the playoff is, there used to be so much stress and pressure, and you lose week 3 and you don't care the rest of the season. Now it's like, no, keep playing, keep playing, keep trying. You just got to get in.
He's got a shot.
You just got to get in, Look at Ohio State last year. I still don't know how they did that, but it is what it is.
So what is the best one sentence advice you can give people who want to be a doctor?
Oh man.
Do you have family that are physicians?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I think I have like a great uncle that was. I didn't really know him, but no, I mean,
first
immediate family. Yeah,
okay. Probably didn't have time, but his dad was a big insurance guy.
Oh no, we didn't know that.
Dad worked on the insurance side.
It's trash. That's
Dad worked the other side of it, so he has a lot of experience on the other side too. Because I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that I would do it again.
Okay.
I think that's the world it's created. I used to think and worry that I would. Maybe worries about, maybe hope that I was the only one that would kind of say that. But unfortunately, it's becoming a prevailing theme amongst providers across specialties, not just in the ER. One of my best buds at the hospital is an orthopedic surgeon. That's what he talks about. He has a daughter who wants to do it. Yep. And he's like, I tell her every day, don't do it. And she's, rotated with one of our PAs, and she's worked in his office, and she's still gung-ho about it. And he's saying, don't do it. My medical director's got a kid applying. One of my colleagues has a kid applying, so they're supportive there. But again, I think they're the only 2 out of the 8 of us full-timers that would recommend to their kids to go to med school.
Okay.
So
I do know a lot of doctors whose kids are lawyers.
Nice. So I don't know how that works.
Maybe there's something to that.
My dad tried to talk me out of law school.
Yeah.
It didn't work, but
I don't know where y'all are on that one, but and I think a lot of it too is just, I guess in the ER, I think about that as we work so hard to get there. I'm so proud, like I said, to match into a competitive specialty. And then it's like, there's no room for advancement for me though.
Right.
And I make a comfortable living, happy with like, still surprisingly, I still find some satisfaction in what I do. Not every day is a good day, whether medically or just
right.
People are jerks, and people that come to the ER are just idiots and hard to deal with sometimes. So not every day is as rewarding as you would hope it would be. But again, the opportunity for advancement in the emergency room is just not there.
Sure.
And so I work with, we mentioned the mutual friend Will, and I've watched him kind of climb the ladder in his business. And you say, wow, for these guys who put in the work and do a lot of hard stuff, they climb the corporate ladder, and there's opportunity for advancement to improve their life and their families' lives. And, sometimes as a physician, that's just not there.
Yeah.
And so that's something else to think about when you go into that. So I guess the best one sentence, if you did want to be, you just got to make sure you're in it for the right reason.
Sure.
Because and know that applies across pretty much anything, but it's a grind. It's hard.
A grind.
It's emotional. And so if you're not in it for the right reasons, it's not going to work, and you're not going to be happy with it.
Well, if you want to go back to law school, there's always room here at the firm for you. So let us know.
Matt's a big gun guy, or used to be. I don't know. You still into it? You still got plenty?
I'll show you. I got a new closet. I'll show it to
we
you.
went and shot. What was it? We shot your AR. We went down here to the gun range and shot that. Is it still your favorite, or you got?
No, I got a new FPC, a Smith & Wesson, that I like a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a fun one. It's a little easier on you. It's a 9mm. So
yeah,
it's a little more fun to plink
We need
with.
to go shoot one day. That'd be fun.
Hey, I got some stuff.
We'll get Chris a weapon here and let him go wild on the pumpkin.
Don't tell a story about the first time we shot skeet.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear the story.
So I'd never shot. I didn't grow up hunting. My dad didn't hunt, and Matt had a skeet shooter. We were shooting out at a farm pond one time, and so they had a 22 rifle out there too. And they're like, all right, shoot this a couple times at this target over here. And I was like, oh, I was ready for it. I shot it.
I know where
BB gun.
Yeah.
So they didn't say anything. Handed me the shotgun. I'm like, all right, pull. That thing nearly took my shoulder off, and nobody said. I was like, what are we? I was like, I didn't know. I thought it was going to be very similar. I didn't have any idea.
That was on purpose.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
That's awesome.
What's the last book you read?
Ooh, the last book I read, not a big reader, but I read most recently, I'm drawing a blank, Mark Titus. I don't know if you remember, he's a Barstool guy. I'm a big Barstool guy. He played basketball at Ohio State with Greg Oden.
Can't remember.
Why am I drawing a blank on his book? That's the one I just finished. I can't believe I'm having a brain fart. But also, I listen to Jack Reacher books when I drive to the beach with the kids. Put an AirPod in, one AirPod in to listen to the book, and one to make sure the kids aren't killing each other in the back. And so that's what. So we just got back to the beach 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's the last one I guess I listened to.
the
I do the same thing. I always put it in my right ear though, so I can hear them less.
So kind of rotate.
Yeah. So you get to have dinner with any historical figure ever. Who is it? Why?
Man, this I don't know if he's historical, but who I'd pick is still Shaq. Shaq's been my favorite human being since I was like 8 years old.
You could arrange that. That's possible.
Man, Shaq is just somebody that I loved him as a basketball player, and he's become larger than his basketball life after his playing career. I don't know if he counts historical, but that's my answer.
He's historical for any kid that grew up in the 90s.
I love him as a basketball player. I love him more as a human. I just think the way his impact in his community is incredible. I think he's funny to watch on TV, and then again, as a basketball kid growing up, he was by far my favorite.
So I'll change the next question then. A follow up on that. You get to go have dinner with Shaq. Where are you going to take him?
Oh man, we're just taking the Roosters.
He'd fit right in.
We're going to take him to Roosters. We might, because that's still.
Do they still do the all you can eat?
No, I think they
put
did.
them
I
out
don't
of
know.
business. Yeah. No. Chicken went up, man. They had to let it go.
Matt could do the all you can eat. Matt could get them. He could do damage.
What's
he was
your-
getting his money's worth. The rest
yeah.
of us were.
What's your record?
87.
87 chicken wings.
Yep. You remember Tommy and Pat, Christopher? We brought them back from college one time.
Yeah.
Great.
And we went one weeknight, and 87.
87 chicken wings.
That's crushing it.
If I make it through 15, I'm toast.
Now, but what do you think about when you were 22?
I don't know. I was smaller when I was 22 than I am now, so who knows?
Favorite vacation spot you've ever been to?
Favorite vacation spot. We're 38 people. That's probably our favorite spot because that's when we go all the time.
Which town?
So we mix it up. We've kind of moved into watercolor recently. We've gone kind of from Seacrest. We've been in Blue Mountain. Watercolor's kind of been our spot here recently.
Yeah.
That's my wife's favorite. So that's where we wind up a lot. But I think my favorite vacation ever was probably our honeymoon to Costa Rica. It was the first time I'd been there. Costa Rica was just going into Central America was just different. And the jungles and the beaches and stuff was cool. I did a medical mission in college. It was in Nicaragua. So spent some time on the beaches there too, on some days off. But so I just like that area. But I thought Costa Rica was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Do you listen to podcasts?
I only listen to one because it comes out.
Bettis Musgrove Show.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So branching out. No, I mentioned Barstool stuff. Pardon my take on Barstool's. It's a football gambling podcast. That's my go-to. I think the guys are funny and they get a lot of good interviews. And
their golf one's good too. Was Foreplay?
I met all those guys. I was at my buddy and I played Echelon. Gosh, at this point, 8 weeks ago, and we came in. We're sitting there eating lunch at about 11:30, and his eyes get real big. He's looking around. I'm like, "What the heck?" And all the Foreplay guys came in and sat next to us. They were on their. It was more than that because they were on their way to the Masters. So it was back at the beginning, I guess the end of spring.
Okay.
And that's what somebody like Roswell Country Club had like canceled their round on them or something, and so someone pointed them out to Echelon, which is right where I live.
Yeah.
So we sat and ate lunch with them for an hour. They were a lot of fun. They were playing a match against the Spit and Chiclet guys. So that it's the hockey podcast versus the golf podcast. That's Echelon. That's awesome. Yeah,
that's
a
cool.
Fun lunch.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming in and joining us.
Absolutely, it was fun.
It was a good conversation. It went a lot longer than I thought it would. So a lot to talk about.
Christopher knows I always got plenty to say.
I knew it'd be. Yeah, I knew it'd be easy. That's why I didn't put a lot on there. So.
Yeah, no, that was easy.
Anything else?
Nope. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Do you have any social media? Want anybody to come look you up, or do you want to stay anonymous?
No. Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right, well, forget about him. Come look us up. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast. Find us on any social media platform, I think, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and always at bettismusgrove.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.